Good morning. So I'm going to briefly introduce the panel that is going to follow my very little talk. So I'm Nicola Bettia, I'm the Managing Director of Nasiba Capital. So Nasiba Capital is a leading organization providing private placement and M&A transaction support to startups and VC and private equity funds here in the region. We are very committed to increase the diversity of the entrepreneurial ecosystem of the GCC, and we see a radical transformation in the ecosystem. We see more and more mature startups raising funds and needing the contribution of a company like ours. But also we see that the best-in-class startups are more and more led by female entrepreneurs. So again, the next few slides are to set the stage for the panel that is going to follow, and let me go to the first one. So again, we have a glass ceiling. I think we've been discussing during this conference for quite a while, and again, all the concepts I'm going to highlight here are very known, and again, these are simply thoughts to increase the dynamics of the panel that is going to follow. So the first one is the educational vocational divide between men and women. So we see that women are very much underrepresented in ICT jobs. There are in top management, as we know, in academic careers. We see that men are 4 times more likely to take a job as a specialist in ICT. We see also that their attitude toward this kind of jobs is less strong compared to those of men. So in OECD countries, only 0.5% of the girls wish to become an ICT professional compared to 5% of boys, so 10 times less. Twice as many boys as girls are willing to become a scientist or an engineer. And while more women are undertaking tertiary education, the actual graduates in engineering and manufacturing constructions are only 25% of the total, and 25% in ICT. There is also an entrepreneurial divide, so it's not just, again, educational and vocational divide, but also on the entrepreneurial side. We see that men are nearly twice as likely to form a startup, to be self-employed. Men are 3 times more likely than women to form a business. 90% of innovative startups are launched by men compared to a very small proportion of women. Women-led startups receive less funding, and only 30% are 30% likely to have a positive exit. And we know, again, and Heather knows pretty well, that women-led VCs are more likely to invest in companies with a woman in the team, in the key team. So the UAE is different. So first of all, the UAE female workforce is way more educated than men. The UAE workforce is growing. The access to the labor market is much higher than other countries. The average woman in the UAE is more educated than the average man. 43% of working women hold a bachelor degree compared to 23% of men, which is quite an interesting statistics. In STEM subjects, in the UAE is among the global leaders. So there is a very high proportion of female graduates. In the Arab countries as a whole, the proportion of women who have a technical degree is between 34 and 57%, which is much higher than any other country in the West. One out of 3 startups in the Arab world is funded or led by a woman, which is a much higher percentage compared to the Silicon Valley. And the last concept is very interesting. So while in Europe or the US, we have lots of legacy entrepreneurship led by men, here we don't have that. So the actual access of women to entrepreneurship is much more fluid and And again, in a way, there is a sort of leapfrogging kind of phenomenon. So I was saying that Nasiba Capital is very committed to this ecosystem, and I'm going to make a couple of announcements. So the first one is that we are launching next year a fund focused on women entrepreneurs. So it's going to be a digital fund. It's going to be, again, based in Abu Dhabi Global Markets. We are working with the authorities as we speak. Is based on tokens, so it's a digital fund with fully tokenized. And again, it's a typical VC fund, so closed-end and based on commitments. So we're investing in UAE-based startups led by women entrepreneurs, or which have women in the key team. We are going to invest in strategic sectors for the region. It's not just funding. Again, as being VC, we provide strategic support and operational support. We will be trying to build a 10 to 20 companies portfolio, investing in the pre-seed and seed capital. We will reserve capital for follow-on investments, and again, the ticket size will vary from $50K to $300,000. The second initiative we are launching is together with our friends of the Capital Club. So we are going to have a speaker series at the Capital Club focused on, again, female entrepreneurship. So we're going to host the best entrepreneurs or the best venture capitalists who are going to share with the audience their journey as entrepreneurs or as investors. We're going to have panels on key topics related to female entrepreneurship. And again, we're going to have 4 events during the year 2019. The second initiative we're launching with the Capital Club is pitch nights. So again, pitching events for female entrepreneurs, 4 events during the year 2019. Again, attended by top startups led or co-led by women, and top VCs and regional investors. And again, a last note. I think closing the gender gap is not just a moral imperative. We are not doing this because it's just a right. We are doing this because it's important. It's important for the economy. Again, advancing women equality is going to produce $12 trillion US dollar to the world GDP. So again, it's not just because it's right, because it's a moral imperative. It's has a major importance under economic and financial point of view. So that's it for as an introduction. So now I would like to call on stage the panelists. So I don't know what is the order here. Maybe we can transition to the slides for the panel. Here we go. So I will call Christina Andreasen, who is the accelerator manager at Womena. Maybe you can sit on the second chair. Heather Enion, the managing director of Mindshift Capital. Dana Baki, CEO and co-founder of Lunchon. And Ida Berhalter, co-CEO of IOMI. Great. So again, I'm very, as I told you before the panel, I feel like in a crystal shop. Again, I'm the only man in the panel with an audience which is composed by 95% of women, and it's a very touchy subject. And I hope I will not make serious mistakes. And please be kind with me. So I think it would be very interesting for all of us to hear your experience as an entrepreneur, as a manager of an accelerator, as an investor. And I think what will be very interesting for the audience is to hear how your experience as a woman has been probably different or peculiar compared to what you were expecting. Christina, we can start with you.
Okay, so first of all, we will be easy on you. Men are our allies as well. And in the accelerator that we run, we have men and female founders, not only female founders. So when MENA started off about 4 years ago, initially we were targeting investors. We had the assumption that if you had a network of female investors, you would automatically have more female deal flow and therefore invest in more women founders. So our goal was to get more capital from privately owned hands to female founders across the region. So we ran that for about 2.5 years. We invested about $1 million in around 10 to 15 startups. What we soon found out was that there was a bit of a pipeline issue. A lot of our deals were coming from accelerator programs that would graduate a cohort of 8 companies, and maybe 1 or 2 of those companies, or 0, would have a female founder. So we saw there was really a lack in the region for a strong pipeline that could build female founders from very early stage until they were ready to receive investment. So we then started to try to build our own pipeline, and to do that, we started a media platform to kind of feminize the idea of female entrepreneurship and promote role models across the Middle East. We also have an online community called Boss Ladies, which is regional and active in almost every country in the Middle East, and we aim to provide networking and support for these women that are on the platform. These are all female tech founders. And then we just launched as well this year our own accelerator program called Momentum, which aims to accelerate early stage, high growth ventures that have at least 1 female founder from early stage to being investable. And we just graduated our first cohort of 8 companies, which we're very proud of. So, and then we also still invest in the top performing companies in our pipeline. So I think the experience of being a female founder, I've spent a lot of time working with female founders from across the region, and we've seen very clear trends through the applications that we get. And some things that stand out for sure is that female founders, they tend to build companies that have some kind of impact. So they're building companies for their communities. We received about 200 applications for our accelerator, and I would say about 60% of them were focusing on things like environment, healthcare, education. So things that are really very big, important pain points in communities that need people to focus on these things. So women really come in this space and build companies around these issues. Another very clear trend was, on the other hand, that female founders were raising at lower valuations than equivalent companies who have male founders. And additionally, that whenever there was a female and male co-founder team, the female founder tended to have less equity in the company than the male founder did. So these were very clear trends that were coming up, and we're trying to address these issues. Focusing on helping women to take advantage of the things that are advantages to them, at the same time helping women to support the different challenges that they are facing in the region when it comes to valuations and fundraising and these issues.
So good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. Actually, what time is it now? Yeah,
still morning.
It's all been a blur today so far, but my name's Heather Henyon. I'm the founding general partner of Mindshift Capital, which is a women-led VC investing in women-led tech companies. And I started Mindshift 6 months ago because we saw a gap in the market in terms of women-led companies that are raising capital after the seed round. So 5 years ago, I started the Women's Angel Investor Network, WAIN, which was the first and largest women's angel group in the region. And we found that women could kind of pull together a seed round of capital, although face the constraints that I think we'll talk about in the panel around time to raise the money, and then just the amounts were generally smaller than all male teams. But we saw that there was still this gap after that, kind of what we call the valley of death. And I always thought it was just networks and that women couldn't raise capital because they weren't in the same networks as the guys. Most of the venture capital fund partners are men. There's only one female partner I know of in the region, who's Hala Fadl, and from Leap Ventures in Lebanon. And in the US, only 8% of the VC partners are women. And because of that, I just thought it was networks. I realized more recently that really there's a lot of unconscious bias that women founders face and women investors as well. So, and because of that, we decided to positively screen for and intentionally invest in women because one, we believe that they make more money than all male teams. So from our Wayne portfolio, we've got 11 companies we've invested in, all from the region, from the Middle East, North Africa region. And we're at a 3.7x in just under 4 years of investing, which is 100% IRR, which is the strongest in the region as far as I know. And it's very strong even when you get to other markets, so the US and Europe as well. And we see the same challenge, not just here, but in the US. In Europe, our fund is global, so it's investing in the US, Europe, and Middle East. My partner is based in San Francisco. And we see also female founders as sort of one of the trends that probably Christina's also observed through Momentum. But female founders tend to also think a little bit more broadly. So they think multi-market. The guys, back to that kind of caveman theory. Sorry, Nicola.
That's fine.
You knew what you were getting into. So the guys are hyper-focused. You know, they are in Silicon Valley. They're only there. They're not even thinking about, you know, Los Angeles. So that's too far for them. Whereas the women kind of think, oh, you know, I'm going to start in New York, and now I'm going to go to Nairobi, and then I was on a trip in London and saw, you know, an opportunity there. So they think more broadly, and that being global gives us the ability to tap into something that women just do in their sleep, which is build networks, build relationships. We're very decentralized. We don't need to have a head office in one place. So we go to where the founders are and where the opportunities are, and that's our fund thesis. We invest in 4 sectors because we see more female founders in these sectors. Those are food tech, fintech, health tech, and ed tech. And we like companies that have more of a kind of enterprise focus, so B2B versus B2C, because usually those companies get to revenue faster and they're easier to evaluate.
Thank you. Yeah, Dana.
Hi, everyone. Is this working? Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Dana Baki, and I'm one of the co-founders of Lunch On, which is a UAE-based startup focused on food at work and making sure people can get good food at work, whether it be for their lunch or for their corporate catering or anything like that. So originally, I came from a corporate background. I worked for Procter & Gamble for over 8 years and then moved to the region and knew that I didn't want to do the corporate thing anymore. Started off working on the investment side of things, which was different, but always had a serious passion for food. It's really like the only thing I think about. After I had my first son, I was on maternity leave and was kind of going through do I go back to the investment side of things? What should I do? And a mutual friend introduced me to my co-founder, who is a man, and we immediately clicked, started working on the idea, both quit our jobs and jumped in 3 years ago, and it's been an incredible journey. Since then, we're thankfully doing well and really excited about what we've done and what we have ahead. But I would be lying if I said it was easy to get where we are today, and I know the path ahead is going to be even more difficult. As far as being a woman in this space, I think I've had extremely good experiences, partly because of the things that I would accept and would not accept. I think the other part of it is I have had very supportive investors, co-founder, partner, everything. I've surrounded myself with people that are very supportive and wouldn't, when they see something, they themselves, without having me do anything, would do the right thing. So I think there's been the challenges that you guys have mentioned, and I can speak to those. But then there's also to me, one of the biggest challenges as an entrepreneur is, being an entrepreneur is so difficult, and balancing that with being a mother is incredibly difficult. And people don't really necessarily feel comfortable having those conversations because they don't want to feel like they might feel like, oh, am I putting myself at a disadvantage by saying that it's difficult to be an entrepreneur and a mother, or am I not being a good mother if I really talk about how much I'm working? And I'm going to be honest, it's extremely difficult. Your startup is your baby. And it doesn't give back like your children. Even if you don't think your children give back, your startup gives you even less. So it's, you really have to be extremely passionate about what you're working on, but at the same time, you need to feel like you're doing what you need to be doing at home. And, honestly, something has to give. Like, it's impossible to be doing everything that you want to do. So, for me, what gives is sleep and time for myself. And sometimes, I can't be everywhere I want to be. But, it is an incredibly difficult trade-off that men don't have to deal with, to be honest.
Ida, you want to share your experience?
So, hello, my name is Ida Berhalter. So I come from different angles when it comes to women investors and women entrepreneurs. So first, I'm heading a family office in Saudi where I teach women of wealth to control the money themselves. And I use investments in startups as a training field. So I let them go loose so they bring the startup, they have the idea, they try to convince me why they should to put the money in, but at the end, I want them to decide if they put the money in, because it's their money. So and it's their money they lose. So, but we have a very serious discussion about it. So this is where I believe, and this is what's actually done in a lot of families. So a lot of the family office have discovered venture or investing in startups as a means to educate the next generation what it means to own and grow a company. So this is one side which I work on. The second side is I'm a trustee of Astia, which is a global organization of around 5,000 people. And we support high-tech, high-growth companies, totally sector agnostic. And the only condition is that you have minimum one woman founder. If you don't have this woman founder, we are not interested. The 5,000 people are 50% men and 50% women, and we are very passionate about its balance. And we do not actually think about in women and men, we think about in people who get it and people who have not got it yet. So this is actually the sectors we have when it comes to people. So, so what does Astia do? So this 5,000 people support women-led companies with money, advice, and network. So every company gets advisors out of the network. Each and every company is presented to Astia Angels, which is a subgroup of the people who want to invest. And then obviously these companies are invested in, and we don't invest in women-led companies or in mixed teams because we see it as a social impact case. For us, it's straightforward business because it makes sense. We see better numbers, we see better results. We see that it changes the perception of people. You know, all the 2,500 men in our network don't question if it doesn't make sense to invest in women because they see the numbers. So it's not really a big surprise. The angel investors support the woman also with a lot of network. And so Astia Angels has been founded, I think, around 4 years ago. There has been invested around 40 million out of the Astia Angels. I think last month they did 7 deals. But what is more important, we dragged, because other investors trusted us, we dragged with our 40, nearly 290 with us into the companies. So this is important that this also can create trust. And the third head I have is I'm also investing my own money in startups. So this is my husband and I, so we don't do public stocks, we invest in startups. And there we look in companies where we think we can, obviously can make money. We don't invest in exits. That means we rarely invest in venture capitalists because we really want sound business models. We want companies who at one point pay us dividends, so we do not want to roll over the portfolio every 5 years and exit. That doesn't mean we don't sell if it makes sense. So if we get a huge offer, we sell, but we do not go in with an exit thought. We are company builders. We are not money makers, but one does not kind of separate the other. And then when we have a team, so for example, one of our investments is a blood diagnostic company, and this is a whole male team. And we invested in them because it made sense from the technology. But they are very well aware about that they need to hire more women, and they want that. And it was not really convincing them. They were just not aware of it. You know, I really told them, so where the hell are the women? Why don't you have women? And they said, we are looking for the right people, so why should we look for women? I said, no, you should have this woman angle as well. So there was no malicious intent. They were really tech people. They think in microscopes and spectrometers. So that was their world. And so I just opened it a bit. So most of the teams are not anti-woman. They just don't think of it. They just want to grow the company as fast as possible, and they hire the first person who can fit the bill is hired. So
I have a question for you, Ida and Heather. So when we were discussing outside, you told me that you like women founders because they tend to be less overselling or less BS to their investors. And at the same time, Heather, you say that women tend to be more ambitious. They tend to draft strategies which are more sort of sky's the limit or less focused than men. How can you comment on that? So on one side...
Sorry, Nicola, that's not what I said. So
Okay.
It's not sky's the limit and being more ambitious. Actually, I don't see that often. Usually women are they undersell and they're more conservative with their projections. We have to actually say, please dream a little bit, increase that,
Totally
because we all like
misunderstood
to overperform, right? We feel this responsibility where we don't want to, I see guys all the time with, in year 3, they're going to be 100 times their growth. And this is the whole unicorn where you're looking for that massive J-curve. I don't know if you've heard about the zebras that women are more likely to build. Zebras are real, unicorns are imaginary. So I think that gives you a good sense of how women think about the future.
Okay. And how do they perform when things are going bad? So sometimes startups, again, do not follow the trajectory it was planned initially. So are women more realistic of how the situation is evolving than men?
I think they're much more realistic, and they plan for kind of the down scenario, right? We're always thinking about, anticipating all these different things that happen with our kids, our families. We're constantly thinking, right, and planning and preparing. So I think sometimes the challenge for women founders is maybe thinking bigger and being a little bit more aggressive, acting faster. So they might run something on a shoestring budget, and this comes to the capital raising. They won't raise enough capital always to get to kind of from the seed round to the Series A, where they've got to have certain milestones in place. So they often end up raising bridge rounds.
And just to add to that as well, what we've seen is that, and this is also backed up by studies in Silicon Valley, that when women make projections and budgets for their companies, they tend to have a bit longer runway because they're able to keep costs lower. They're very good at building companies with little capital.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a study that showed that when women founders in the US, they tend to pay themselves less than men founders in the budgets. So it's about 30% difference in terms of what they make for themselves for their salaries compared to male founders, which of course you could argue is maybe not always good, but it does help in terms of the runway. So this is, I think, one of the secrets to the longevity of these female-led companies, because they project into the future further than men do.
So sometimes risk aversion is considered one of the factors that bring less women into the entrepreneurial scene. How this is affecting the startups in your accelerator, in your portfolio? So do you see that risk aversion is playing a role in women-led startups?
So I always like to look back. For me, the cryptocurrency industry is a very interesting example because it started off 10 years ago 10 years ago, and at the time, no one owned any cryptocurrency. Now, I think in total, women hold about 5% of cryptocurrency in the world. So it was a very democratic platform. Anyone could join. Women tended not to join. Now in hindsight, it's probably a good thing, seeing that it has crashed. But I think this really illustrates that I do believe that women deal with risk a bit better. They can be risk averse, and we have seen that for sure. one thing that was very evident to us, it was really manifest when it came to...
Sorry for interrupt you, but you need a certain risk-taking attitude in a startup, right? So
Yes.
risk aversion is for the corporate maybe, but not very useful in a startup.
So I think that it is a weakness, to be honest. I don't know what you think, but I think in general, it is something that needs to be improved, and especially when it comes to females investing and female founders, I think that we do need to be more risk conscious, and this is something that we did work on our accelerator program with the companies that we were working with, is to help them to actually raise higher amounts of money. This was a big issue that we really faced, where they were raising lower amounts, and because for them it's a risk to do that. So we really had to push them to increase that. So I mean, I think it is something which does need to improve, but maybe you have a different perspective.
So two things. One, I think women in general are better risk managers than men. This is whenever we look at boards, kind of the safe pair of hands are the women, right? People feel more comfortable. I chair an audit risk committee of a large organics producer in Egypt, and I know all the men feel comfortable having me there because I'm doing the work, I'm reading things, I'm looking at the audits. I take it very seriously. And there are lots of studies now showing that hedge funds that are run by all women, mutual fund managers, personal finance managers are actually outperforming all male teams. And I think that comes back to risk and the longevity and not getting kind of tempted by these short-term gains that are actually not real. They're not disciplined approaches to managing money. Just like running a business and growing and starting a business is not, you need to have a plan. The plan changes, but you need to have a plan. I saw an interesting talk by a Swedish professor in Malmo 2 months ago, and she actually talked about this subject. So she said that she's been studying this in different areas, and it's actually linked to a hormone that women don't have. I can't remember the name of the hormone, but it's a hormone that only men have, but it actually comes out and it gets triggered during three activities, military activities, gambling, and sexual activity. So I think that, and I see that a lot from I'm also part of a large angel group that is primarily men, and the differences in how the guys act compared to my women's angel group, which is all women, during pitches, it's very different. And I think that there is I think that's when that hormone gets triggered, because it becomes almost like a casino in some of these these experiences. So I don't think, though, I think the fact to generalize and say that women are more risk averse across everything is not true. I think we look at risk and we manage it differently, but in the end, I'm going to be more comfortable giving my money to a woman to manage, because I know she's probably going to do better with it and avoid the short-term pitfalls. I don't know.
Ida, you want to?
I think women less panic. So I think they're really less panic when you. I see it in all the teams I have. So the men, it's testosterone, by the way, where kind of they go.
But it's not. It's like a different name. It's not testosterone. It's something. Anyway, I'll try to think of it and.
Okay, even a stronger drug.
Yeah.
So the women are more thorough. They are more prepared. They think more holistic, and for me, they don't do this jerk reaction. So there is not like it's not they. If you see it like flying a plane, they see there's a risk. They don't kind of do these things. They really go rather smoother with also with investments with money. And what my experience with whole male teams is, so when my husband and I, we started off with investments. We invested by sheer coincidence in a mixed team and in a whole male team. And what really happened, the whole male team, so the money was in, our money was in. The first thing the guys did, they all bought themselves a new computer. And they all had a laptop. The first thing they invested was they all had the newest Mac. That was interesting. The mixed team didn't do that. So we actually went back to the male team and said, we have here milestones where you invest in our money. So what is the next thing? Company cars? It's like, so it was, and they didn't actually know that. They said, oh, you do not trust us. I said, no, that doesn't mean I do not trust you. I think you do not spend the money wise. We have a plan, and we don't have 7 MacBooks in the plan. That was never in the plan. So why are there now 7 MacBooks? It's like, and we had this discussion. So, and it's the same as also when you see with the exits, what women do with the money, what men would do with the money. This is also a very interesting thing. So men, often go with money, and yes, I know I tell some stereotypes, but they go off the rails. There is the Ferrari, there is often the change in spouses. Yeah, it's true. It's minimum 30 years younger because now they can afford it. So it's, women don't do that. Women invest in community, in security. They give. They give a lot. They care about their friends and family. Women actually say, I made 50 million, and they remember, this is my school friend. I have contact with her. She has 3 children. She doesn't have a flat. They buy 5 apartments, but their friends lived in the apartments. So at least this is my reality, what I see. So there is definitely a difference how this works.
Okay. Yeah, maybe a last question that a bit more provocative. Let me try this. I don't know if I'm venturing in
more
in Australia. So every time the society try to rebalance the participation of a certain category of the society to the whole, with affirmative action, etc., there is a certain imbalance. Again, in the United States, we've seen that with certain minorities, etc. So do you feel that CSR programs, funds dedicated to women entrepreneurship, accelerator dedicated to women entrepreneurship, and are really making the access of women to entrepreneurship super easy and maybe way easier than men today? Or is there is still way to go, and there is lots of stuff that needs to be done in order to make to encourage a much higher participation of women to entrepreneurial
Donna, is it easy to raise money?
No.
So is it easier to be
To be a man?
to be a woman entrepreneur?
So I mean, you guys can speak to it. But I think it's very important for these organizations to exist and for us to be pushing them, because there is a lot of unconscious bias, and without dialogue and without bringing things to the forefront, people won't naturally change the way that they do things and see things differently. So I think it is very important for people that do see the need for these things to be pushing them and forcing them. And when it's no longer a need, then those organizations won't need to exist. They won't see people wanting to go to it, and they won't need the people won't be participating. But the fact that there are people that want to participate and people are applying and people are looking for it means that there is definitely a need within the ecosystem and the world for these things. So I don't think it's easier as a woman to do much, honestly. So I think people would like to believe that, but it's not the case.
And I think that we, now there's a bit of a push in the last 2 or 3 years, but I feel like there is still a lot of systemic issues that need to be addressed. And for example, in Egypt, as a woman entrepreneur, you have safety issues when you're going around. I have entrepreneurs who've told me they've stood up in front of a panel and people thought that she was the secretary. And this is like last year. So. And then on the other hand, you still see, and we have seen, women who are fundraising while pregnant being penalized by the investors for being pregnant and being given very tough milestones and tranches because she's pregnant. So, and this also happened again just this year. So, I mean, it looks like women are getting a lot of support, but they also have incredible obstacles to overcome, especially in this region. So I would argue that even though from a man's perspective it seems like everything is cozy and we are just throwing money at female entrepreneurs, actually that's not the case at all. And we do have a long way to go.
Yeah, I think I don't see them making a dent in the problem, to be honest. I think that there are a lot of female founders. I mean, in this region, my guess is 50% of the entrepreneurs are women, but you don't see them. You see them here, but if you go to GITEX, if you go to the startup boot camps, the accelerators, aside from Momentum, you don't see the women. And part of it is different places and different circles. But there's a major problem. I mean, now globally, women get only 2% of the venture money. So if there are 50% of the founders here, 40% of the founders in the US, 30% of the founders in Europe, how are these women able to raise capital? This is my core belief is that women need capital. And the LPs, the investors, are still the men. Even us as Mindshift, fundraising is really challenging because we go to the limited partners and they're all guys, and the first question is, are there enough women to invest in? When I started Wayne 5 years ago, a very prominent investor in the region from Egypt said to me, why would you do this? You're limiting your pipeline. You're cutting yourself out of 50% of the deal flow at least. But then when I look now at our financial results and our track record, I'm glad that I didn't listen to him. So I think you've got to do, I mean, we're smart people. We know what the problems are. We've just got to fix them. And part of that is investing. If more women would invest, we would not have such a large challenge. Because women now, we read all the time, women, the largest transfer of assets now in the world is happening to women. So women now need to invest in women, invest in venture, diversify portfolios, become more involved. I know this is the work that Ida is doing in Saudi and in other places, but I think this is a time that we've got to step up and start investing. Even if it's something small, if you want to join Wayne or a small angel group, it's $10,000, $15,000. So it's not just for the ultra high net worth people. You can get involved and start from today. So please reach out to me if you're interested in this, we're fundraising at Mindshift as well. So that's another option. But until we get more women engaged as investors, we're just not going to change things.
Thanks. Ida?
For me, it's really, we have to ask for that. And I agree with you. A lot of the money is in the woman's hand, but just technically. Then they give it to the bankers or to the VCs.
Advisors.
And they pass the power on. And then there's a big surprise. So, you know, if you have wealth, and I mean, wealth doesn't mean zillions. If you have $10,000 to invest, which is wealth, you follow your money or give your money with a condition. You know, there's this, JP Morgan has this whole portfolio of diversity portfolio, where, you know, if you're wealthy, you say, I want to only invest in companies where, you know, there's a certain rule how many women are in C-level. And these companies actually outperform. So there, you can, if you have, and the richer you are, the more your banker will listen. You know, this is, if you are a shareholder in a company, if you're owner of a company, you know, remind yourself that it's your company. Yes, you might have a whole CEO board to tell you, oh, you know what, you are young, you know, your father, I was a friend of your father, you know, I tell you what to do. Tell Sam, no, I'm the owner. I tell you what you do. And if you do not listen, I take action, and then take action. So, and for me, it's pure business sense, because if you look that talent is distributed equally. It's not that men have more talent than women, it's distributed equally. If you look at Mensa, you know, this super gifted community, so 2% of all people, and I mean all people on the average, black, white, yellow, man, woman, gay, not gay, are super gifted. So we just need to distribute the opportunities equally, and the rest will take care of itself. So this is actually my thing.
Thank you. I think we are running out of time. I think we have still time for a few questions. I see a few arms raised. Maybe you can provide microphones here. Yeah. So we have a question.
Hi, I'm Jayashree. My question is Dana. As what I understand from your talk and discussion, that simultaneously you delivered the baby, and other side you started a new business. Both the things happened together. And you told me it was quite incredible difficult. I do agree with you. Most of the ladies are facing the same problem. So now my question is this: what makes you to come out this scenario? Only passion, or what other tools you have used to come out with this? Thank you.
No problem. So passion is definitely a big piece of it, because when you're an entrepreneur, male or female, to put your heart and soul into anything that much, you need to be passionate about what you're working on. So that's definitely a big piece of it. I think a part of it is having a supportive partner in what you're doing, whether it's a partner at work or a partner at home. That's very important, and that can't be underestimated. That's definitely something very powerful. I think one thing women are very, very good at is being organized and getting things done. So I think when you have a problem, or when you in any sort of scenario, we find a way to make things work. We always do. Women always find a way to make things work. And it might hurt us in other ways. So, you know, it might impact our sleep, our health, or whatever it is. But whatever we've said is a priority, we make it happen. And so I think a part of it is, you know, problem solving, prioritizing, being very organized, and not getting overwhelmed by the situation that you're in. And, you know, basically being able to take a step back and say, okay, what's really important out of, you know, the scenario that I'm in? What is a must? What am I not going to give up? And then, you know, what's less important and how can I manage it? And how, you know, what can I have someone else do? And that sort of thing. You know, it's not easy, but we, you know, women everywhere have found a way to do it, whether it's work or other things. So it's just having confidence that you can do it and then prioritizing.
Another couple of questions over there.
Hello, everyone. It's Asma, and I really want today just to ask a question more to triangulate the opinion. Please don't jump before I finish the question, because it may seem like provocative. But as a woman, I really believe that there are, you know, some foundation problems to fix when it comes to gender parity, women in tech, women not accessing investment, etc., at the same speed as guys. And in the same time, there are some acceleration that I think we shouldn't miss. The future will not, you know, wait for us. And if we look at the future scenarios, in the future, we may be seeing a third gender. Everything will be accelerated and will be augmented self, probably will be having AIs and robots helping us do things better and faster. All of that with the purpose to solve challenges that matter. So don't you think really that, you know, apart from trying to fix the foundation, shouldn't we, you know, help human beings, men and women, tackle and really see what are the great challenges that they want to solve, and remind them that technology will enable them to do so. And so by upskilling them, they will become relevant. And thus women will become relevant. And whatever problem they want to tackle, it will be enabled by tech. They will be already women in tech. So I just want to triangulate. Do you really think that we can advance the debate and serve the purpose by as well looking at this acceleration part, or just seeing really what doesn't work and trying as well to fix just systemic, which is, I mean, no effort to be discounted, things that should be fixed? I would love really your opinion generally. Thank you so much.
I'm not so sure.
That's a difficult
Yeah,
one.
it's a difficult
I think
question.
one
Yeah.
doesn't exclude the other, and that would be my answer. One doesn't exclude the other, and tech is not the solution to everything, because tech will not solve a lot of problems we have. So there are still people who need to work with it. Yes, you have robots, but at one point, if robots take all over the work we have, just think this to the end, then we need to occupy ourselves with something, and the human problem, the human issue, the gender issue, will not go away by robots taking over the work. So I think these are two things, and at the moment I have a little bit the feeling that we are changing tires while the car is rolling. It's a little bit difficult, but I do not see it. I do not also see the necessity that we stop the car. It will not be easy, and it is challenging for both, for men and women, to, you know, to jump in their mindset to the next development stage. And if you look really back, you know, we come from a very, you know, Stone Age. Maybe we also have to go now we are mentally at a Stone Age. We need to make the next development, but not in tech, but as human beings. If we don't do this anyway, you know, we will kill ourselves anyway, because, you know, this is what I tell my principals. We amass a lot of money, but maybe in 2060, we cannot longer live on Earth. So
Yeah, we can't eat.
it's kind of, you know, then we can burn the last zillions, and then we switch off the light.
And I think this is also why it's important, because we're building a future. And if women are not part of that building process, the end result won't be a future which is easily accessible for women, you know? For example, Silicon Valley was built by men, by white men, which is why we have these problems now, because you didn't have these early female founders coming in and influencing the culture. The same way, if we have only male founders building tech products, you will have male-focused tech products. This is why it's so important that women are included in this process of building, so that we can have a more diverse and equal future for both, or all three genders.
I want to add something when it comes to pharmaceuticals. We women, and everybody who's not white, male, and 70 kilograms has a problem.
Yeah.
Because all drugs we take are tested on white male, 70 kilograms between 25 and 35. There we know all the data, how it works. There is some things, there's some misconception out there. The same when it comes, there's another, from the healthcare, another thing like men get more heart attacks. That's not true.
It's women.
Women do not make it to the hospital with a heart attack because they have different symptoms. This is true. So there are some things which need some reflection, and I think we cannot stop to reflect, but do not run after these statements and stereotypes. Ask questions. I would put everything on the table, and I would look through everything.
Great. Maybe there was another question, or maybe not. Or two of them. I don't. Maybe we have time for one.
Hi, I'm Mona. So my question is right at the other end of the previous question, actually. Understanding that we're speaking in broad generalizations, what I would like to ask you is, are there not genuine differences between men and women's desires, talents, and interests? Having sons and daughters, nieces and nephews in a very progressive, free kind of atmosphere and, homes, I see that, the whole STEM dialogue, trying to get women into the STEM programs. So my question is, are you only focusing a lot on tech, getting women into technology, rather than maybe also what women are generally interested in as well, maybe into the arts and the creative and, other things. So I'm just kind of a little concerned about trying to do something and ignoring the other side of what women like to do as well.
So I think also this comes back to how we define tech. So a lot of the female founders I see aren't necessarily technologists, but to start a company and run it, you can have a CTO, you can have a co-founder who has the tech background. And my belief about future of work, and related to the last question, is that everything needs to have a tech solution. So the companies in the world, and we see this now I think in the UAE as well, that some of the large conglomerates that made money off simply just retail and trade, they're not going to be around if they don't adapt to the new world of tech that we're living in. So I think, and this concerns me a lot, I've actually been spending time in Abu Dhabi with some local women in the palaces who just are very isolated. They really are not exposed to the tech world, and they are the teachers of our children. So if they're not then, kind of literate in tech, they're not using things like Airbnb or Careem or whatever, how are they then going to be prepared to advise their children when they're going to the labor force and it's totally different than it is now? So I think when we think about tech, there are definitely sectors that women are more attracted to, and there's a lot in the creative world, but this is food tech. I mean, there's lots of creativity, I think, when starting businesses with a tech solution. Does it have to be deep tech and AI and machine learning? No. I mean, but I think to be tech-enabled is really important in the world that we live in now.
Yeah, so if I may add on this point, I think the figures we presented before are not important per se. What is important is that we should let young kids express their personality or their tastes, irrespective of the societal prejudices or the societal pressure. Today is not the case. Again, the low proportion of women in ICT or in STEM-related professions is due, again, this is my analysis, but not only mine, is due to the societal pressure on them. So it's not accepted fully by the society to have girls taking certain jobs, and this is wrong. Again, every individual should express his or her own tastes in a very free way.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I think it's even more ingrained in our society. You know, with young children, you look at the toys that they have available to play with. You know, toys that are for boys are train sets and cars and, you know, building things and that sort of things. And for girls, it's, you know, Barbies and, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what they like, that's fine, they can do that. But we're not creating an equal system for children to explore things. And, you know, I can't tell you how many times I'll be in a toy store and I'll hear a mom tell a little girl, no, this isn't for you, this is the stuff that's for you. And that makes me very angry, because, you know, if she wants to buy a train set, I don't care if it's blue, she should be able to buy the train set. And, you know, so I think it's, it's even like, we have to question things. Are girls interested in arts because they're interested in arts, which is great? Or is it because we've told them this is what girls like?
But it works the other way around again. There
what I
are
was
boys
saying.
which are repressed
Yeah,
because they.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the same,
Absolutely.
it's the same for boys. You know, in
Yeah.
my girls' kindergarten, there were 3 boys who wanted to wear the princess dress, and they were told, "You cannot do that. You are a boy." And they wanted. So when they came to play with my girls, obviously we had princess dresses. They were running all the time around our house in pink dresses. It was like, and you know, they are now 16. They are fine. They had nothing, you know, their parents were fine, so we didn't kind of, by allowing them wearing those pink dresses, I didn't kind of screw them up in any way, kind, shape, or form. So at least not what I can see. But this is, for them, it was, they wanted to test themselves. So they wanted to play the princess, not the prince.
I have the impression we are starting another panel on a different subject.
Sorry.
I think we should stop it here. It was a great honor for me to host you, and again, great conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.